The Trojan Horse. Real or just a story? Imagine a city that has stood unbroken for 10 long years. Its walls are tall, its gates locked, its people weary but proud. The enemy camps outside, desperate and frustrated, unable to breach its defenses. And then, one morning, the defenders wake to silence. The enemy is gone. All that remains is a colossal wooden horse, standing ominously at the city gates. The Trojans, believing it a gift from the gods, drag it inside their walls. That night, as the city sleeps, Greek soldiers hidden inside emerge, open the gates, and Troy burns. It is one of the most legendary stories of all time. But here's the question: was the Trojan horse a brilliant act of deception, or just a myth? Part 1. The Myth Retold. The Trojan horse story comes to us as part of the larger saga of the Trojan War, a conflict between the Greeks, often called Achaeans, and the Trojans. According to mythology, the war began after Paris of Troy abducted Helen, the wife of Menelaus, king of Sparta. This act triggered a decade-long war immortalized in Homer's Iliad. But here's the catch: Homer's Iliad doesn't actually mention the horse in detail. The Iliad ends before Troy's fall. The tale of the horse comes later, especially in Virgil's Aeneid, written centuries afterward by the Romans, and in other Greek sources like the Odyssey. The myth is captivating. After years of stalemate, the Greeks, under Odysseus's cunning plan, built a massive wooden horse as an offering to Athena, goddess of wisdom and war. They pretended to abandon the war, leaving the horse at Troy's gates as a sacred gift. The Trojans, thinking their enemies had finally given up, debated whether to destroy it or keep it. The priest Laocoon famously warned them, "Beware of Greeks bearing gifts." But his warning went unheeded. The Trojans dragged the horse inside the city. That night, Greek warriors hidden within climbed out, opened the gates, and allowed their army, who had only been hiding nearby in ships, to storm Troy. Troy burned, Helen was taken back, and the Trojan War ended in devastation. This myth has captivated audiences for thousands of years, but historians today ask, did it really happen? Part 2. Ancient Sources. To uncover the truth, let's look at the original sources. Homer's Odyssey, written around the 8th century BCE. Homer does briefly reference the Trojan horse, but in a poetic, passing way. Odysseus tells the tale of how the Greeks built the horse and hid inside, but it is not the centerpiece. Virgil's Aeneid, written around 19 BCE by the Roman poet Virgil. His account is detailed and dramatic, describing the deception, Laocoon's warning, and the fall of Troy. But Virgil was writing for Roman audiences centuries after the supposed events, mixing myth with propaganda. Other Greek tragedies and epics. Plays by Sophocles and Euripides also reference the horse, again reinforcing the myth. What this means: by the time we hear the full story of the Trojan horse, it's already been passed down for centuries, transformed by oral tradition and poetic imagination. Part 3. The Historical Debate. So, was the Trojan horse real? Historians and archaeologists are divided. Theory 1. A real siege engine. Some scholars believe the horse wasn't a literal giant statue, but a metaphor for a siege engine. In ancient warfare, large wooden machines, like battering rams or towers, were used to breach walls. The Greek word hippos means both horse and could metaphorically refer to a wooden machine. So perhaps the horse was a poetic retelling of a war engine that broke Troy's defenses. Theory 2. A symbol of earthquake destruction. Another theory ties the horse to Poseidon, god of earthquakes, who was also associated with horses. Some think Troy may have been weakened or destroyed by an earthquake, later mythologized as a horse breaking the city. Theory 3. A clever trick, but not a horse. It's also possible the Greeks did use deception to enter Troy, maybe hiding in a concealed wagon, or faking a retreat and sneaking back at night. The story of a horse could be a symbolic exaggeration of the actual trick. Theory 4. Pure myth. Finally, many historians argue the horse is pure myth. While the Trojan War may have some basis in reality, The horse could have been invented later to explain the city's fall in a memorable way. Archaeology of Troy. In the late 19th century, German archaeologist Heinrich Schliemann excavated what he believed was the site of Troy in modern-day Turkey. He uncovered multiple layers of settlements, cities built on top of each other over centuries. The level known as Troy 7, dating to around 1200 BCE, shows signs of destruction by war and fire. This matches the rough period when the Trojan War is believed to have occurred. But no wooden horse was found, of course. What archaeologists did find were evidence of strong walls and fortifications, signs of prolonged siege and sudden destruction, artifacts showing a wealthy, important trading city. This suggests something dramatic happened, but what exactly remains unclear. Alternate theories. The horse as metaphor for a ship. Some argue the horse was not a siege engine, but a ship. In ancient Greek, ships were often described as horses of the sea. Perhaps the horse was a ship that delivered Greek warriors inside the city. The horse as propaganda. Later poets may have exaggerated the cleverness of the Greeks, turning a simple act of infiltration into a legendary trick. It makes for a better story than the Greeks sneaked in. The horse as religious symbol. Ancient cultures often used animal symbols in myths. The horse may have been symbolic of divine favor or Poseidon's power, later confused with a real event. Myth versus fact breakdown. Let's pause and break down the key elements of the story. Myth. A massive wooden horse was built, hollow inside, filled with soldiers, and dragged into Troy. Fact. There's no direct archaeological evidence for a wooden horse. Myth. The Trojans believed it was a gift to Athena. Fact. Greeks often left offerings to gods after war, but the story likely exaggerates this custom. Myth. Troy fell overnight because of the horse. Fact. Archaeology suggests Troy was destroyed violently, possibly after a long siege. So while the exact horse may never have existed, the story encodes truths about ancient warfare, deception, siege tactics, and the blending of religion with war. Cultural impact. Even if the Trojan horse never existed, its impact on history and culture is enormous. The phrase Trojan horse today means a trick, a hidden threat, or something deceptive. In computer science, a Trojan horse virus is malware disguised as something harmless. The horse symbolizes the power of cunning over brute force, celebrated in countless works of art, literature, and film. It's proof that even myths shape how we think and act thousands of years later. Why the story endures. Why has this story lasted for over 2,500 years? Because it taps into universal fears and lessons. The danger of misplaced trust. The devastating cost of war. The idea that intelligence and trickery can change the course of history. Whether the horse was real, a metaphor, or a later invention, it reminds us that in war, and in life, appearances can be deceiving. So, was the Trojan horse a brilliant military deception, a misunderstood symbol, or nothing more than myth? The truth may never be known, but perhaps that is why the story survives, because it lives somewhere between fact and legend, between history and myth. Now, I want to hear from you. If you were a Trojan standing at the gates, staring at that massive wooden horse, would you have dragged it inside, or burned it where it stood? Screen fades to black with text. History is not always what it seems.